there should be no law against killing people. I know it's a wrong thing, but hell, you restrict somebody from it, they're gonna want it more.
We found our victim, and sad as it may be, our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get?
Pocatello is a city in Idaho, right in the northwest. It's mostly full of members of the LDS Church and is known for being a safe, super tight-knit community. For over a century, people call it the gateway to the northwest, and residents are genuinely proud to live there. But in 2006, this peaceful city became the site of one of the most brutal and twisted murders in modern American history. Cassie Jo Stoddart was born just 4 days before Christmas in 1989. She grew up in a stable, loving home where she was the center of her family's world. She was a dedicated straight-A student who stayed out of trouble, had a solid group of friends, and was headed for a great future. Because she was so responsible and reliable, her aunt and uncle, Allison and Frank Contreras, asked her to house sit and watch their pets while they were away. On the evening of September 22nd, 2006, Cassie headed over to a house on Whispering Cliffs Drive in northeast Bannock County. Around 6 p.m., she invited her boyfriend, Matt Beckham, to hang out. Later that night, two of her school friends from Pocatello High, Brian Draper and Torey Adamcik, also stopped by. Cassie gave them a quick tour of the place, and then they all sat down to watch a movie. The group was halfway through Kill Bill, Volume 2, when Brian and Torey suddenly said they'd rather go to a local theater to watch a movie instead. They left, leaving Cassie and Matt alone to relax. Out of nowhere, the power cut out. The sudden darkness made Cassie feel really uneasy, though the lights eventually flickered back on. At one point, Matt noticed one of the dogs staring intently down the basement stairs, barking and growling at the empty space. But he didn't think much of it. Feeling creeped out, Matt called his mom to ask if he could spend the night so Cassie wouldn't be alone. His mom said no, but she told him Cassie was more than welcome to stay at their house. Cassie turned down the offer. She felt a sense of duty to her aunt and uncle and insisted on staying behind to look after the house and the pets. At around 10:30 p.m., Matt's mother arrived to collect him. Matt decided to see if Brian and Torey wanted to meet up, so he called them as they had said they were going to the cinema. Torey was whispering, so Matt couldn't hear what he was saying. Matt ultimately decided to stay at home. 2 days later, on Sunday, Cassie's family returned home to Whispering Cliffs Drive. Upon entering the house, Cassie's 13-year-old cousin was confronted by a horrific and traumatizing sight. Cassie was found on the living room floor, having been stabbed to death in a frenzied and brutal attack. The police quickly arrived on the scene and sealed off the area. An autopsy revealed that Cassie had been stabbed approximately 30 times, with 12 of the wounds being potentially fatal. 3 days after Cassie's body was found, the police announced they had made arrests in connection with her murder, and this would send shockwaves throughout this tight-knit community. Brian Draper and Torey Adamcik had been taken into custody and were being interrogated by investigators. People were stunned. These were not only classmates, but trusted friends whom Cassie enjoyed spending time with. Both boys were considered social outsiders, but Cassie had embraced and befriended them. Brian had spent most of his childhood in Utah before his family moved to Pocatello. It was at Pocatello High School that he met Torey Adamcik, and they soon bonded over their mutual love of film. They used a camera to document different aspects of their lives, and Cassie soon featured in many of their recordings. On September 27th, after hours of interrogation, Brian Draper agreed to lead officers to where he and Torey Adamcik had gotten rid of the items they had used in Cassie's murder. Amongst the items were a pair of black fingerless gloves, several knives, a partially burned mask, a Sony videotape, and a partially burned handwritten note. Police tried to decipher what the note said and were able to determine a few sentences parts of which read, "Is home alone. Stop out the house. Runs into Torey. We murder Cassie. Brian chases her. Kill her." The terrifying picture was starting to become clear. This had not been a spur-of-the-moment murder. This had been a carefully planned and executed crime, a fantasy that they had been determined to carry out. As the investigation continued, they uncovered more disturbing evidence against Brian and Torey. The pair had filmed Cassie on the morning of the murder when they were at school. Investigators also found footage of them gleefully talking about what it was they were about to do.
There should be no law against killing people. I know it's a wrong thing, but hell, you restrict somebody from it, they're gonna want it more.
We found our victim, and sad as it may be, she's our friend. But you know what? We all have to make sacrifices. Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get? I mean, like, holy shit, dude.
I'm horny just thinking about it.
The full horrors of what happened to Cassie Jo Stoddart that night had finally become clear. While at the house and giving them the tour, Cassie had shown them the basement, and before they left, Brian unlocked the door to ensure that he and Torey could re-enter the house without being noticed. After they said they were going to head to the cinema, they left the house and returned to the neighborhood later and parked down the street. They left the car and put on dark clothes, gloves, and masks before heading back to the home. They let themselves into the unlocked basement door and cut the power at the circuit breaker, plunging the house into total darkness. They hoped that Cassie and Matt would come down to the basement to investigate, but when neither of them did, they turned the power back on. The dog that was growling and staring down the stairs had spotted the pair of them hiding in the basement. When Matt rang to ask if they wanted to hang out, Torey was whispering so he wouldn't be discovered hiding inside the house. After they were sure that Matt had gone, the pair cut the power again. Brian opened and slammed the door at the top of the stairs. The aim was to scare Cassie as much as possible. They then terrorized and terrified her before brutally stabbing her to death. The disturbing details did not stop there. The police soon found the following footage.
I just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a fucking joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie. Oh, fuck. That felt like fucking real. I mean, it went by so fast.
Shut the fuck up, we gotta get our act straight.
Okay.
Torey Adamcik and Brian Draper, two seemingly unremarkable 16-year-old boys, were charged with first-degree murder. During the interviews, the boys turned on each other. Brian initially said that while he had been in the room when Cassie was murdered, it was Torey who had stabbed her and not him. He later confessed to stabbing her, but said that it was under Torey's orders. As the pair went on trial, the small city of Pocatello became the center of a national media firestorm. Journalists from all over the country had gathered to follow this disturbing case to its conclusion. The damning video footage was shown to the court. Stunned onlookers watched on in silence, and they saw how Brian Draper and Torey Adamcik had meticulously planned their crime and the glee they had taken in murdering their classmate and friend. One question that people wanted answered was why. Brian revealed that he had been inspired by Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, who became internationally notorious when they carried out the Columbine High School massacre in 1999. Torey Adamcik was said to be influenced by the classic horror film Scream. The first film focuses on a group of high school students who are terrorized and hunted by a masked killer. Part of the killer's modus operandi is they scare and terrorize their victims before brutally stabbing them. On the 17th of April, 2007, Brian Draper was found guilty, and less than 2 months later, so was Torey Adamcik. They were convicted of first-degree murder and received a mandatory life sentence of life without the possibility of parole. They also received 30 years to life for conspiracy to commit murder. The life sentences given to the pair could be reviewed, as the case of Miller versus Alabama declared that mandatory life sentences without the possibility of parole for juvenile offenders were unconstitutional. Since their sentencing, the pair have filed several appeals against their convictions. However, none so far have been successful. They are currently both serving their sentences in the Idaho State Correctional Institution. In the years following the murder, Brian and Torey have appeared in several documentaries about their crime. Torey Adamcik was also interviewed as part of an episode of the true crime show called Justice. He was suspected of stabbing a woman to death in her own home in Pocatello, just 2 years before the murder of Cassie. Although DNA evidence would eventually rule Torey out, the police were able to gain further insight into him while they were investigating. They conducted a telephone interview with Brian Draper, who revealed some disturbing details about Torey's personality. Torey's mother, Shannon, has also written a book about her son's case called The Guilty Innocent. The book takes readers deep behind the scenes of the trial. She argues that the prosecutors weren't looking for truth, but were more obsessed with what the public thought. She also points out that her son's defense team had never handled a murder case before, and they simply lacked the experience he needed to actually fight for his life. In 2010, Cassie's family filed a civil lawsuit against the Idaho School District. They claimed that Brian and Torey had been a clear threat for a long time, and that the school was negligent for not seeing the warning signs. However, the civil court and the state Supreme Court threw the case out, ruling that the pair's violent actions couldn't have been predicted. The wreckage left behind by Cassie Jo Stoddart's murder is both permanent and impossible to measure. The day her body was found in her aunt and uncle's house, the family walked away and never looked back. The police helped clean up the blood and the mess at the crime scene and found them a temporary place to stay. But the family could never bring themselves to step foot in that house again. They've tried to sell it over and over, but no one will buy it. Her broken family has spent every waking moment fighting, not just for justice, but to make sure the world never forgets the bright, funny, and hard-working girl Cassie was. If you enjoyed this true crime story, don't forget to subscribe to Crimey Pencil for more real and chilling cases. Hit the bell icon so you never miss the next story, because the darkest truths are yet to come.